Dr. Mark Changizi here with your Science Moment. I was just temporarily suspended yet again by Twitter. Let's back up and remind ourselves about the number of times that I, just myself, have been suspended and deboosted and censored by Twitter. So going back even further, as of the beginning of 2021, things were much less bad in terms of censorship then than they are throughout 2021 and 2022, during which time the Biden administration started to tell us, in fact, that they were coordinating and working with big tech social media to flag specific posters and their tweets, and to ensure that those who are posting information that goes against the mainstream narrative are censored. And they shouldn't just be censored in one venue, but they should be censored across all of them. They should be blacklisted across all. This is their own statement, so you can imagine that even behind the scenes what they're actually willing to do in those circumstances. And I haven't talked about it here, but there's now been FOIA requests by other groups that they've leaked, not leaked, but they've had to divulge all of these emails, which showed us the actual coordination as early as December or November of 2020, all through early and mid 2021, of social media interacting with the CDC and other government officials, flagging particular example tweets, including those of Naomi Wolf, as examples of the kinds of things that should be censored and their authors kicked off. So at that point, even before they started to announce this, I and Dr. Tim Barber, we started a research institute called Free Expression Institute, FreeX. FreeX.group is the website. And the idea was that things were getting sufficiently bad that people didn't seem to understand the importance of free expression. Much of the Science Moment videos that we deal with here are concerning the defense of free expression and the emergent dynamics that work across this social networks that function so that society slowly moves towards the truth when it's functioning correctly. What ways does it break down? How does mass hysteria relate to these? Because mass hysteria happens when these things break down and certain kinds of waves or avalanches happen that go through them. So here we started a research institute devoted to defending freedom, free expression in the context of freedom and in the context of truth discovery. And I wrote a piece for The Federalist at the beginning of 2021 in that regard about the threats to free expression, which are one of the greatest threats that we're undergoing. So after that is when the Biden administration started to say, oh my gosh, we really have to censor all the misinformation. And much of the world started to say, yes, we're seeing all of these amazingly authoritarian tendencies all over the world. Hey, what are those authoritarian tendencies? Well, there's people saying things that we don't agree with in the public square. Trudeau actually said that kind of thing. NPR, whenever you turn it on, are saying these kinds of things. Those, unfortunately, on the left are disproportionately believing that the censorship of misinformation is completely justified and ought to be done, and you should only be allowed to say the truth. So whenever you have a debate with two people, you should say, well, why don't we just the person that has the true position be allowed to talk, and let's just let the other person sit down. That's the ad absurdum that their viewpoint leads to. And again, many of these science moments are trying to look at the multidimensional facets of this, because as you've seen, there's 60 or so science moments on the various different kinds of angles all around free expression, and many of them are actually quite subtle. So Twitter first suspended me for 12 hours last year, maybe it was May or something like this, or April. Then they suspended me for 7 days, and then on retrospect, it turned out they started censoring me and deboosting me. And you could see my impressions rose and rose and rose, and then in mid-2020 when they started to fall, and soon I was down to a bare fraction of the impressions that I had, and it was due to the fact that most of my tweets to many of the people were labeled as sensitive content. I was treated in the same way that porn purveyors are treated, and eventually Twitter admitted, saying, oh yeah, well, we treat you as sensitive content because of your views on masks and COVID-related issues. So then I was permanently suspended in end of sort of late December 2021. I appealed. I didn't think I would get back in, but I was brought back in, and that's when I realized I had been being permanently, I had been seriously deboosted and censored constantly, and have been since mid-2021. And so as of a few hours ago, I was again given a 12-hour suspension. And just to go through, what did they suspend you for, Mark? Well, it was this particular tweet, which goes back, today is August 5th, and this goes back to July 28th from about a week ago. And I said, in response, this was in a comment thread, and I said, and masks are just one part of the suite of useless, draconian, civil rights violating and harmful interventions. We were talking about, in this context, these are the kinds of people like, what civil rights violations? I don't even know what you're talking about. What civil rights violations? It was like, it's like, and I'm mentioning a lot of these things, like masks are just one part of the suite of useless, draconian, civil rights violating and harmful interventions. And then in parentheses, I said, and the tweet below was before vaccines and worldwide violations of bodily autonomy. I didn't even say that the V thing doesn't work. I didn't dare say that. I'd be suspended. But there's no question there were violations of bodily autonomy. Take that medicine, or you lose your job, or you can't go to any public situation. You're effectively banished. That is exactly coercion, and there could be hardly coercion much stronger, except for strapping somebody down. Right? So, I don't really want to get into whether this is true or not, and it really doesn't matter, because misinformation is zero justification for censoring something. But it's even, it does make it even worse somehow that they're censoring things that are sort of clearly opinions about it. And in this case, the interventions have been shown to not have worked over and over and over again. They've been shown to not narrowly function as they were supposed to, and had deep, drastic harms that will be with us for a long time. So this was not really so much a science moment, but as a way of just bringing you up to date on this saga. And again, we still are involved in this lawsuit that I've apprised you of several times. Our case was dismissed, and the reason at the time was like, you don't have any evidence that the government is coordinating with Twitter and Facebook and YouTube. It's just all these coincidences. They say they're going to coordinate with them, and then you get censored, and well, who knows what happened in between those two things. But now there's these FOIA requests that I mentioned that show, in fact, the conversations and pointing to particular tweets. And we have our own FOIA request out, which they have pushed back on for many months, and so we're suing to make them move forward on that, because we suspect that our names, by which I mean Daniel Kotzen, Michael Sanger, and myself, are probably on their lists as well. And fight for free expression, keep fighting for it. Get a copy of Dr. Tim Barber and my book, which is on the origins of free expression, on the origins of emotional expressions, on the origins of how it is that all social animals truly communicate with one another, and it concerns the language that masks stop.